This week on Africa Weekly, we focus on Nigeria, where around 84 million people are registered to vote in this weekend's presidential and parliamentary elections. Along with the main candidates, pop singer and rapper Banky W is also vying for power, putting his showbiz career on hold to run for a seat in parliament. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Ahead of Saturday's poll, 15 people were killed in southern Nigeria on Tuesday in a stampede at a rally held by President Muhammadu Buhari. The deaths are the latest on the campaign trail before the weekend poll, in which Buhari is seeking a second four-year term of office. According to local media and eyewitnesses, panic broke out at the end of the rally as crowds tried to force their way through a locked exit. And on Wednesday, the two main presidential hopefuls, Buhari and his rival former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, signed a peace accord in front of foreign observers.
We are hopeful that this is evidence that we are all maturing in our disposition towards electoral outcomes. We see this as an opportunity to grow our sense of political culture in Nigeria.
Clashes broke out in eastern Senegal on Monday between supporters of President Macky Sall and the opposition. One pro-government campaigner died as a result of a stab wound, and a police source said a young pro-government motorcyclist was killed by a vehicle. The violence erupted on Monday in Tambacounda, 400 kilometers east of Dakar, pitching supporters of President Sall against those of opposition candidate Issa Sall. Police in eastern Senegal have made 24 arrests and seized knives and clubs after clashes in the run-up to the February 24th presidential elections, which Macky Sall hopes to win outright in the first round. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi officially took over the rotating post of ceremonial head of the African Union at the start of a two-day summit in Addis Ababa on Sunday. Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who led an active reformist tenure as AU chair, passed the baton to Egypt, which is expected to focus more on security issues than expanding the body's powers. In his speech, Sisi addressed the pressing issue of security on the continent.
وعلى الرغم من جهودنا الحثيثة للسيطرة على النزاعات بالقارة ومحاصرتها.
Despite our restless efforts to curb conflicts in our continent, an ambitious plan crafted to silence the guns all over the continent by 2020, you're all aware that the path before us is still long to quell all the fighting in Africa.
Algeria's ruling National Liberation Front announced on Saturday that it had picked ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika as its candidate for April's presidential election. The declaration came a week after the ruling coalition backed Bouteflika for the April 18th poll.
We've lived safely for 4 mandates. Algeria lives in safety, thank God. We live our lives safely. Our children work, our brothers work, thank God.
In power since 1999, 81-year-old Bouteflika uses a wheelchair and has rarely been seen in public since suffering a stroke in 2013. Cameroonian opposition leader Maurice Kamto, who claims he was cheated out of the presidency in last October's elections, was charged with rebellion and insurrection this week. He had been arrested in the economic capital Douala late last month after his party, the Movement for the Rebirth of Cameroon, staged protests in several cities against last October's election result.
A well-known figure in the world of business and politics, Atiku Abubakar is the leading opposition candidate in this month's general election in Nigeria. His campaign has focused on the nation's economy and security issues, but as a former vice president from 1997 to 2007, he's also hoping to highlight his political experience.
I felt there was need, for somebody like me to step out, experience in politics, experience in governance, experience in business, to try and restore and bring back the country.
Since winning the People's Democratic Party primaries in 2018, Atiku Abubakar has been campaigning around the nation. Just like current President Muhammadu Buhari, Abubakar is a Muslim from the north of Nigeria. But the two candidates, who are also both in their 70s, diverge when it comes to economic policy.
So Buhari is positioning himself as a statist, pro-big government and all of that, while Atiku Abubakar on the other side is positioning himself as pro-business, pro-private enterprise.
Following a career in the Nigerian Customs Service, Abubakar made his fortune investing in various sectors, like agriculture and the oil industry, winning him the support of the financial elite. But an endorsement from big business is a double-edged sword, with many of his detractors viewing him as corrupt.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is making a second bid for the presidency, after a first term marked by poor health and even rumours that he'd died. He's campaigning on his promises to tackle corruption, boost the economy, and end the Boko Haram jihadist insurgency in the country's northeast.
We are committed to deepening the work we started this first term, such that nations' assets and resources continue to be organized and utilized to do good for the common man.
But his track record tells a different story. Boko Haram, after having been initially put on the back foot, is still carrying out deadly attacks. On the economy, a damaging recession linked to the drop in global oil prices has fueled inflation and driven unemployment rates to record highs. Despite initial support in his northern stronghold, voters are increasingly divided.
I will vote for Buhari because he has improved security. Before, we couldn't even go to school.
The people are suffering. You can see that the economy has collapsed. There's high inflation and life was easier before Buhari arrived.
The 76-year-old former general was the first opposition candidate to win power by the ballot box 4 years ago. But as Nigeria's problems deepen, victory on February the 16th is far from certain.
A well-known singer in Nigeria, Banky W may not know much about politics, but he does know how to engage with young audiences. At 37 years old, he's a fresh face compared to many Nigerian politicians. He is hoping his candidacy in the upcoming general election will help get young people interested in politics.
The younger generation in Nigeria, we're not doing anything. We're talking, but we're not doing anything. And I feel like what we're trying to do is inspire our generation to care again, to pay attention again, to participate, to be involved, to play our role in changing the narrative, in fixing Nigeria.
It's a popular message among many young Nigerians who are fed up with the seeming inability of the ruling classes to deal with the problems they face. He's seen as a candidate for change.
I really kind of love him. He's a nice person. I love his music. And the way he's going for this, he's going to win. And I support him.
He's a very simple guy and we all like him. So we want him to rule us.
As the election approaches, a politically engaged group of musicians has also emerged. They do not sing to sell records or fill clubs, but to fill polling stations with young people.
The future of Nigeria is in the hands of the young people. And if we're not participating now, then it means we are most likely not heading towards the best future. Of course, we'll have a future, but it won't be the best.
In a country where 18 to 35-year-olds make up 51% of the electorate, the youth vote is crucial. And yet, the most likely winners of the February 16th vote are both men in their 70s. Incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari is seeking a second term in office, with former Vice President Atiku Abubakar his main challenger. Despite their age, both these candidates will be hoping that they can engage with the younger generation.
The Nokue Jazz Festival saw a musical caravan on the water last weekend, which brought the sounds of jazz to the shores of Lake Nokue, one of the largest bodies of water in Benin. The festival was held in the lake villages of Benin, which often find themselves excluded from the cultural world. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.